The truth of the matter is that multidimensional poverty, and we've just released an analysis 10 days ago in New York, which covers the global status on multidimensional poverty, but very much there was a focus on South Asia and very much on India. And I'm not concerned with South Asia, I'm only concerned with India. I think 15% of humanity is quite enough responsibility for me to carry. But in terms of the numbers for South Asia, we have, as somebody illustrated, I think it was Sachin just now, we've gone from a huge amount 15 years ago, where we were almost 60% of multidimensional poverty. India represented 685, I think, million of that number in 2005. And we are now, we projected, we did a linear estimation because the latest data available was 2015. We did a linear estimation for 2018, and India is at around 300 million, while South Asia is at around 540 million. But that represents, certainly for India, a more than halving of poverty in literally a 13-year period of time. Multidimensional poverty. And multidimensional poverty merges income poverty and education and health access. So, on the one hand, a tremendous success story. Of India lifting so many millions, hundreds of millions of people, in South Asia as well, out of poverty, but then the residual challenge still remains. And how that is going to be addressed, certainly in India, I'm quite bullish, I'm quite positive. I believe in the next 10 years, India is going to further halve that number while increasing GNI per capita, again, doubling GNI per capita in the next decade, assuming that the growth rates continue as they are or better in the foreseeable future. So, you know, good news and bad news. Good news, we're achieving something amazing, very much similar to what China did in the MDG era, India and South Asia reproducing in the SDG era. But moving forward, quite a few challenges remain. As I said, gender, we have some of the highest gender gap in the HDI dimension indicators. 31% of women in South Asia have experienced domestic violence. In India specifically, we are troubled by the number of women's participation in the labor force of only some 27% plus or minus. And frankly, I believe that a little bit of that low number is actually because of the informal economy. And I think the Vice Chair would agree with me that if we could actually have reliable data from the informal sector, that number could be better, because a lot of women, certainly in India and elsewhere in South Asia, are involved in informal family businesses, farming businesses, etc., that are simply not popping up on national statistics. But nevertheless, the number is remarkably poor. But let me stop for a moment on climate change. And it was dramatic, frankly, to hear the Secretary General speak to Prime Minister Modi over the last, and other Indian officials, but certainly with the Prime Minister over the last couple of days. And he is ringing the alarm bell. He is ringing the alarm bell and saying, look, first of all, the numbers that the scientists are presenting now, and by the way, just between us, they are not different from what they presented 7 years ago. It's just politically some of these numbers were watered down, but the actual estimations even of 5-7 years ago indicated a pace of change that is quite a lot quicker than we are assuming. And the 2-degree warming that we need to avoid, and even better to end up at somewhere maximum of 1.5 degrees Celsius, we're almost at a point of missing that boat. To quote the Secretary General, he said both in the private meetings and in the public meetings here in Delhi over the last couple of days that climate change is moving faster than we are. And frankly, I think that's going to become on the SDG agenda, that's going to become his theme over the coming months and years. He is calling to world leaders to come to a summit next year in September to discuss a much more ambitious climate agenda. But importantly, and that's why I bring it up here, he's asking South Asia, he's asking India specifically, and he's asking the big and important countries around the world. And you know, our Indonesian friends are not here with us, and now they have other things to deal with. But he's asking the if you want a coalition of the willing to come together and lead and demand action on this agenda. And this does not mean that the UN is now trying to rejiggle the responsibility and say, well, you know, the North and the West have created these problems for the climate, and now it's the South and India that need to solve it. No, that's not the message at all. The message is, and I think he heard it reciprocated in Prime Minister Modi's speech when he received the Champion of the Earth Award from the United Nations just a day ago, that the countries that will lose most, and I know colleagues from Maldives are here in the room, are including in this part of the world. Scientific projections indicate that, among other regions, India and its neighbors will be hit disproportionately more. Now, we can debate here in this room and any other gathering about who's responsible for climate change, whether it's man-made or not man-made. The point is that we are facing a civilizational challenge. And all our other targets, whether in the SDGs or in the national priority lists, will frankly become irrelevant if by 2030 or by 2050 we don't have a place to properly live, develop, grow, achieve standards of living that our citizens deserve. And so that sustainability dimension, I think, is going to come front and center in the coming months and years, and frankly, I don't think we can avoid it. Let me stop here. Wish you all a productive discussion over the next day or so, and further into the future where these events will continue. Again, send to you greetings from the Secretary General. Thank you for all the incredible work that you're doing in all of your countries, and specifically thank India, not only for doing what it's doing on the SDGs and on the poverty and other sustainability and other agendas, but also for hosting this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Afanasieff. May I now take this opportunity to invite His Excellency Dr. Pushpa Raj Kadel, Vice Chairman, National Planning Commission of Nepal, for his keynote address. You have the floor.
Good morning to everybody. Honorable Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, His Excellency Dr. Rajiv Kumar, United Nations Resident Coordinator, India, His Excellency Mr. Yuri Afanasieff, Director and Head of UNESCAP South and Southwest Asia, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, Director General of Research and Information System for Developing Countries, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, on behalf of the Government of Nepal, my delegation, and my own, I would like to express sincere thanks to Honorable Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, His Excellency Dr. Rajiv Kumar, Director General of Research and Information System, Dr. Sachin Chaturvedi, and Director and Head of UNESCAP South and Southwest Asia Office, Dr. Nagesh Kumar, and his Secretariat for convening of and having meticulous preparations for the meeting of South Asia Forum on the Sustainable Development Goals 2018. Also, I thank you, Honorable Vice Chairman, Your Excellency Dr. Rajiv Kumar, for your kind invitation to me as a special guest of honor to this event. I feel very honored on your invitation, as it is a great forum that helps to exchange our views and learn from each other in this region. The forum has a key business of reviewing SDGs and finding ways to resolve challenges for the implementation of the 2030 Agenda with a clear roadmap. Ever since we adopted 2030 Agenda in 2015, Nepal's continuous focus has been on its timely, effective, and full implementation of SDGs in synergy and coherence with other specific programs of actions like the Istanbul Program of Action for LDCs and the Vienna Program of Action for LLDCs. The SDGs are not mutually exclusive. To address the key development challenges, we policymakers should identify interrelationships and synergies between the 17 SDGs and 169 targets. Nepal, as a landlocked, mountainous, and least developed country emerging from conflict and from the devastating earthquakes of 2015 and suffering from other natural disasters, keeps great hope and confidence on this forum regarding the experience sharing on implementation of 2030 agenda. Highlighting Nepal's status in the implementation of the 2030 agenda and our unique and special challenges, we presented Nepal's voluntary national review last year. As per the inclusive and right-based constitution promulgated in September 2015, three-tiered election for local, provincial, and federal parliament have been completed and a new stable government is currently in power. With this political stability, our focus has now shifted to economic prosperity with the vision of making prosperous Nepal happy Nepali. We are internalizing and localizing the SDGs in all tiers of government through plan, policies, programs, and monitoring and evaluations at sub-national level. NPC prepared the SDG disaggregated data of about 130 indicators at the provincial level too. Mr. Chairman, Nepal is serious for achieving the SDGs in generating, sharing, and sustaining the prosperity. We set the ambitious target in our SDGs status and roadmap 2016 to 2030. In Nepal, 3 high-level institutions have been formed to ensure effective implementation of SDGs across the country. They are Steering Committee, which is chaired by the Prime Minister, Coordination Committee, which is chaired by the Vice Chairman of the National Planning Commission, and 7 thematic committees headed by the NPC members. Sectoral ministries and other stakeholders are also boarded on the implementation of the SDGs. The present 14th periodic plan of Nepal, along with other annual sectoral plans, policies, and their targets are being aligned with the SDGs implementations. Nepal has been preparing on policy documents such as long-term development vision, 15th 5-year periodic plan, SDGs needs assessment, costing and financing strategy, planning, monitoring, and evaluation guidelines that are fully aligned with the SDG goals and targets. NPC has started to enhance the capacity and provide support at the sub-national level in planning, budgeting, and monitoring process. We estimated and projected the budget for 3 years, started from financial year 2018-2019, according to SDGs in the medium-term expenditure framework. For this fiscal year, most of the resources is allocated to poverty reduction. Goal 1, about 10%. Clean energy, goal 7, about 7%. Industry and infrastructure, goal 9, about 12%. Sustainable cities, goal 11, about 15%. And governance, goal 16, about 10%. We have not quoted about 31% resource that goes to sub-national level as the fiscal transfer. According to SDGs needs assessment, costing, and financing strategy, the annual average investment requirement for the entire SDG period is 2,025 billion Nepalese rupees. The costing of major SDG areas shows that the total investment requirement for achieving the target set for 2030 is 47.78% of the GDP on an average. The private sector, cooperative sector, the civil society organizations, development partners, and households are collaborating with the government for the implementation of the SDGs. So the bilateral, multilateral, and triangular cooperation has crucial role to fulfill the resource gap in this regards. We have also realized that achieving SDGs is not an easy task for countries like Nepal. The challenges include inadequate financial resources and access to technology, foster connectivity and capacity development, governance, and horizontal and vertical coordination among the three tiers of government, and so on. As we are in the formative stage of federal structure of the country, localization of the SDGs, that is cascading national efforts to subnational levels and mainstreaming the SDG agenda into the provinces and local levels remains one of the major challenges. Weak database and lack of availability of disaggregated data, especially in subnational level, is hindering monitoring of the progress. In addition to the realignment of policies, financing challenges will emerge large, particularly to trigger and sustain job-creating economic growth, enhance the quality of social service provisioning, and to invest adequately to reduce risks from disasters. Above all, Nepal's development path is beset with structural challenges such as landlockedness as well as with vulnerabilities to climate change and natural disasters. Our commitments are critical for achieving the SDGs and present considerable challenges, especially on fulfilling the resource gap for SDGs implementation. Nepal's official development assistance is less than 15% of budget expenditure. FDI as a proportion of national budget is below 2%, and outstanding debt to GDP ratio is about 28%. While Nepal is committed to doing all it can, including